So, how do we make money positive? Well, there's a group in Europe called the Positive Money Movement. They got the correct ideas and it'll work. It'll give us the opportunity to take back our money and spend it on the things that we need to spend it on, like positive technology.
Most of the money in the economy is actually just numbers in a computer system, and we still think of it as cash, but actually most money now is electronic. The question is, where does that money come from? And unlike the cash, which is only created by governments and central banks, the money that we're actually using for most of the economy is created by commercial banks. So they create money every time somebody takes out a loan. You walk into a bank and take out a mortgage. That money isn't coming from somebody else's bank account. It's actually new money that's created effectively out of nothing. What we need to do to fix the money system is remove this power to create money from the banks, return it to some democratic, transparent, accountable body, and make sure that money is created in the public interest and spent into the real economy instead of being pumped into property bubbles and financial markets.
If we had a money system in which governments had sovereign control over the money supply, then it would be perfectly legitimate for governments to invest in the things that we know that we need in order to create a good society, a low-carbon society, a society which is sustainable, a society in which we have more equality. The money system is absolutely key to that vision.
In such a system, we'd still have banks, but they'd only be allowed to loan money which had been deposited with them. It would reduce inflation in the economy, it would allow us to reduce resource use, and it would give us a much more stable financial system.
That kind of framework, an independent monetary authority with the money supply actually under sovereign control but regulated by an independent authority, is a much, much safer route than anything that we had before.
In one way or another, money affects almost everything that happens on the planet. If we want to deal with the big social, economic, and environmental challenges that we're facing today, changing the nature of the money we use is where we have to start. Right now, we have a problem. More than 97% of all the money in our economy is created by banks when they make loans. Most of this money goes into house price bubbles and gambling on financial markets. This has led to ever-widening inequality, the highest personal debt in history, and house prices that very few people can afford, before even mentioning the financial crisis. But 3 simple changes to the way that money and banking works could make a huge difference. These 3 changes would give us a more stable economy, with more jobs, less personal and government debt, and a solid footing to begin tackling the environmental crisis. So, what do we need to do? Firstly, we need to take the power to create money away from the banks and return it to a democratic, accountable, and transparent process. History has shown that when banks have the power to create money, they create too much in the good times, causing financial crises, and too little in the bad times, making recession and unemployment even worse. They put most of the money that they create into house price bubbles and financial speculation, and only a small amount into businesses outside the financial sector. We simply don't think that we can trust banks, who are hardwired to chase short-term profits, with something as powerful as the ability to create money. And it's not enough to regulate them. Regulators have repeatedly failed to keep banks under control. There's no reason why they should get it right this time around. But we can't trust politicians with the keys to the printing press any more than we can trust the big banks. Instead, we need a new committee that decides whether and when to create new money. This committee would need to be accountable to Parliament and sheltered from vested interests. They would ensure the right amount of money is created, not enough to cause bubbles in a financial crisis, but not so little that it causes a recession. Secondly, we want to see money created free of debt. Right now, banks create money when they make loans, which means that for every pound in your bank account, someone else must be a pound in debt. It means that almost all the money in the economy is effectively on loan from the banks, and we have to pay interest on nearly every pound that exists. If we try to pay down our debts, money disappears from the economy, making it harder for others to repay their own debt. Instead of letting banks create our money, the state could create it, free of debt. And instead of lending money into the economy through mortgages and loans, it could be spent into the economy. This means that new debt-free money would stimulate the real economy, create jobs, and make it possible for ordinary people to start paying down their debts. Finally, we want to see money come into the real economy before it reaches financial markets and property bubbles. If newly created money was used to fund public spending or cut taxes for ordinary people, then that money would start its life in the real economy. It would create jobs and support businesses, instead of getting trapped in financial and property markets. There are real challenges facing us over the next 40 years, such as how to provide for a growing population, a changing climate, and increasingly scarce natural resources. Right now, it's impossible to solve these problems because money, which affects almost every aspect of our lives, is broken. We need to fix it and get a money system that works for society rather than against it.
Well, there you go. That's how we make money positive. Take it out of the Federal Reserve hands and put it back into our hands and let us spend it into the environment, and we will spend it on the proper technology. This will lead to a global organization of technology because now democracy is in control. And we will do the right things. But when we got the banking system in control, Wall Street and the Federal Reserve, central banking, they don't care about doing the right things. They're not doing the right things. I mean, they're still supporting their oil companies for money streams, for those fake numbers to keep rolling in, and why have they suppressed solar energy? Solar energy is a great example of what that system does and how it manipulates technology. I mean, we're building solar farms out in the middle of the desert that are highly inefficient and bad for the environment. Well, the system of money, Wall Street, the corporations, they set that system up to keep us paying per month for a money stream to pay for energy. We make money positive, put it back into the people's hands. What we would do with it is we would start designing buildings with solar roofs and battery systems where we get to take the houses and businesses off the grid. We get to eliminate the reoccurring payment structure to big corporate energy companies. See what solar farming was about? It really wasn't about improving the environment. It was a manipulation of the energy technology to keep you paying for what should be free, which can be installed on your roof. Since we're not subsidizing that program, solar panels that go on top of a building are still very expensive. That's the manipulation money does. Obviously, that won't build a global organization of technology. It won't even come close. That'll build destruction.